This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter. I'm welcoming you to Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, on January 12th, 1969, one of the greatest upsets ever in Super Bowl history happened. In fact, it's the third biggest upset in my mind, behind Super Bowl 42 and Super Bowl 36. But those two don't have any impact. So anyway, Super Bowl III was huge because of how big it was for the NFL and the AFL. Now, you got to remember, back in the 1960s, the NFL and AFL were two different leagues. AFL was a competitor to the NFL, trying to get cash in on the fact that NFL had a monopoly and tried to break the monopoly, if you will. So the AFL came through in 1960 with teams in cities that the NFL would not consider to be in. So practically, they tried cities like Miami, Buffalo, Oakland, Denver, San Diego, Cincinnati. You get the bright idea. So basically, the NFL did counter a little bit in 1960 when the AFL said they had a team in Dallas. They put an NFL team in Dallas. Unfortunately, though, Dallas suffered from a bad expansion draft, and basically that team sucked. They only had one tie in 12 games, and that was against Tom Landry's former team, the New York Giants. So basically, the AFL was trying to compete with the NFL. They had a contract with ABC and all that. By Kurt Gowdy got to call games. One of the most famous AFL championship games of all time was in 1962 when the Dallas Texans, now called the Kansas City Chiefs, took on the Houston Oilers, now the Tennessee Titans, in a game at the Rice Bowl in Houston. No, Rice Stadium, in Houston. Rice Bowl is a little slanderous, don't you think? But anyhow, the AFL was huge. And Dallas captain Abner Haynes famously said at the overtime coin toss, we'll kick to the clock. So basically, we'll take possession with the clock, near the clock. Unfortunately, though, he said kick, which meant that they had to give the ball away. Happily, though, Houston did not score, and the Dallas Texans won the game in double overtime, which was kind of shocking, don't you think? But, that was one famous blunder that actually didn't blow up in someone's face. It's like Jim Marshall's. I know it did blow up in his face, kind of, but Minnesota did win that game. So anyway, the AFL was living in harmony, trying to destroy the NFL, and basically picking up NFL talent and all that. Joe Namath, when he signed in 1965 with the New York Jets instead of being the NFL, that was one of the first cannon shots the AFL threw at the NFL, and made the NFL realize that, we're serious. So anyway, a few years later, it's the end of the 68-69 season happened. This was the third AFL-NFL championship game, and the first to actually be called Super Bowl. Allegedly, the name Super Bowl came from Kansas City Chiefs owner Lamar Hunt after watching his daughter play with a Super Bowl. I think that was kind of a neat name for a championship game. So the game was played on January 12, 1969, so 52 years ago today, at the Orange Bowl in Miami, Florida. This was one of the greatest upsets in both football and sports history. The Jets were 18 points underdog against the strong Baltimore Colts, who were basically almost unbeatable and all that. The AFL finally got a Super Bowl after Green Bay won the first two. A lot of people said that the AFL teams were less talented than NFL clubs and said that the Colts will beat the crap out of the Jets by a wide margin. Now, they had reason to back it up because Baltimore was 13-1 and pasted the Cleveland Browns in the NFL championship game 34-0. The Jets were 11-3 and had to squeak by the Oakland Raiders 27-23. And for those who are wondering, yes, that was the season of the Heidi Bowl. The Jets beat the Oakland Raiders on their turf, Shea Stadium, whereas the Heidi Bowl was in Oakland during the regular season. And yes, the Jets blew a big lead to Oakland, and basically fans on NBC were upset that they couldn't watch that game, the ending of the game, because Heidi had a 7 o'clock thing. Long story short, the Heidi Bowl actually worked out in people's favor, even though the Jets lost to the Raiders. It made both the AFL and NFL realize that if they put broadcasting famous events and all that at 7 o'clock and all that, they gave a little bit of leeway towards football start times and all that, and they made the decree that basically if the game went over the allotted time, they would show the game in the home markets and would just basically put if you're not in the home team or visiting team's market, then basically you would be screwed and the game would turn off and all that. Joe Namath made an appearance 3 days before the Super Bowl at the Miami Touchdown Club getting an award. And after people were heckling him, he basically says, we're gonna win this game, I guarantee you. So basically this is huge. It was huge. The Jets actually got only 16 points. They got 3 field goals by Jim Turner and a touchdown run by Matt Snell. Unfortunately, the Colts did terribly. Earl Morrow threw 3 interceptions before Johnny Unitas finally got into the game, even though Unitas was hurt before the start of the 68 season. That's why Morrow had to be the starter. With the victory, the Jets were the only winning team to score 1 touchdown, just 1 touchdown, until the Patriots in Super Bowl 53. Namath was named MVP, even though he was only 17 for 28, 206 yards. He was actually the first player in Super Bowl history, but not the last, to be named MVP without personally scoring or throwing for a touchdown. So basically, yeah, there were a lot of rival leagues in the NFL and they all burned, but the AFL was serious and all of that. A lot of people basically said that, the AFL was inferior. So the Baltimore Colts, before the 68 season, they had won 2 NFL championships under Coach Weeb Eubank, including that famous 1958 game called the greatest game ever played that basically had overtime between Baltimore and the New York Giants. And Baltimore won on a Michi plunge. But that game was the first to majorly be on nationwide TV. And basically that's why football got popularity on TV and all that. The Colts failed to make the playoffs. And then Eubank was fired after 1962. So he went to New York in the AFL franchise that just changed his team from the name Titans to the Jets. Baltimore decided to hire Don Shula in Eubank's place. And it worked out. The Colts did lose the 64 NFL title game to Cleveland and lost to Green Bay in a tiebreaker game to get the conference title, to get to the NFL championship game. The Colts were terrible to the Packers. The NFL realigned into 4 divisions of 4 teams in 67. They did pretty well for themselves, but lost to the LA Rams and lost the division championship based on better net points the 2 teams played. The Rams were 1-0-1 against the Colts. Colts were 11-1-2, but were excluded from the playoffs, which was weird. But anyway, in 68, they looked good. Unfortunately, Unitas had a preseason injury to his throwing arm, and Earl Morrow, who was a 4-team journeyman, actually was made starter. But he proved to be big. He led the league in passer rating. And Shula decided to keep Morrow in the starting lineup after Unitas was healthy enough to play. The Colts won 10 in a row. I don't know who they lost to in that 68 season, but anyway, yeah. The Colts crushed. Oh, their sole regular season loss was against Cleveland, and the Colts avenged that with that 34-0 NFL championship win. They had some very good players. All that. The Jets were 11-3. One of the losses was to the Heidi game, of course. Joe Namath was inconsistent. Even though he threw for more than 3,000 yards, he completed less than half his passes and threw more interceptions and touchdowns. Still, the offense looked good with the running game and all that. Several of the Jets players actually were cut by NFL teams, including star Jets wide receiver Don Maynard. I didn't know he was cut in the NFL. He was cut by the Giants after the 58 NFL title game, and he was bitter. Johnny Sample, one of the best defensive players for the Jets, was cut by the Colts too, and held a grudge. Winston Hill, offensive tackle, was cut by the Colts as a rookie. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, the postseason happened. The Colts beat the Vikings to get to the NFL title game against Cleveland and crushed them deeply, 34-0. New York would face Oakland in the AFC title game. Oakland crushed Kansas City to face the Jets. The Jets won one division. Oakland and Kansas City had to play a one-game playoff to decide who faces the Jets, I guess. Frankly, the Jets survived, even though Oakland had 3 possessions. They turned it over on downs. They lost the fumble, and time expired. So basically, Namath actually said that there are 5 quarterbacks in the AFL who are better than Morrow, and he named himself, his backup, Babe Pirelli, Daryl LaMonica, John of the Raiders, John Hadel of the Chargers, and Bob Greasy of the Dolphins. And Namath decides to guarantee it to a rowdy Colts supporter. And Namath was not too happy. Well, the coach wasn't too happy about that because, Namath was giving them bulletin board material and all that. So NBC handled the game. It was the first time CBS did not have the Super Bowl because they did the first 2. So anyway, Kirk Gowdy was play-by-play, and the commentators were Al DeRogers and Kyle Rote. Strange as it sounds, Pat Summerall actually was doing player interviews for the pregame show, even though it was CBS, but CBS wanted to help NBC out. The Orange Bowl was sold out in Miami for the game. That's the old Orange Bowl Stadium before the Hurricanes moved to what is now Hard Rock Stadium. The live telecast was not shown in Miami due to both leagues' unconditional blackout rules at the time, so Miami was pissed off. The game is thought to be the earliest surviving Super Bowl game preserved on videotape in its entirety. But they did lose a portion of the Colts' fourth quarter scoring drive. Because videotape back in the 1960s was very, very expensive, and they had to re-record sometimes. 41.6 million people in the U.S. watched the game on television, which was amazing. So anyway, the Jets and Colts would face each other off. The Jets had a 7-0 lead thanks to Snell's touchdown. And then came the most famous plays in Super Bowl history. Baltimore tried the flea flicker play. Mate ran off right tackle and then pitched it back to Morrow. Morrow would throw in the end zone. The play fooled the NBC camera crew and the Jets defense, leaving Jimmy Orr wide open near the end zone. However, Morrow did not spot him and threw a pass for Jerry Hill that was picked off by Jim Hudson. It was amazing. Orr said that I was the primary receiver, and Earl said he didn't see me. I was open from here to Tampa. And people actually said that Morrow didn't see Orr because the Florida A&M marching band, who was going to be part of the halftime show, were in blue uniforms similar to the Colts. For some reason. But anyway, the Jets ended up winning 16-7. And basically, after it was 13-0, then Don Shula decides to pull Morrow for Unitas. Unitas tried his best, but failed. A lot of people said that if Unitas was in the game earlier, then the Colts might have had a better chance. So anyway, it was just amazing. And all that for a team like that. So yeah, a lot of records, of course, were shown because, after all, it was the 3rd Super Bowl. So yeah, this was amazing. The aftermath was huge. The following season would be the last one. The '69 season would be the last one before the AFL-NFL merger. Kansas City would even the AFL-NFL Super Bowl tally at 2 by taking down the heavily favored Minnesota Vikings in Super Bowl 4. The Colts actually moved from the NFL to the AFL, aka the AFC, with the Jets and the other AFL teams. So that was huge. How the Colts, the Browns, and the Steelers moved from the NFL to the AFL, and then when it became the AFC, that's where they stayed. All that. Funny as it sounds, the Colts and Jets were divisional combatants in the AFC East until the 2002 realignment, when 32 teams came in. When the 32nd team, we made 8 divisions of 4 teams. So basically, it shifted the Colts to the AFC South. The Colts and Jets would not meet each other in the playoffs till the 2002 season. And of course, they're in the same conference, and they cannot meet in a Super Bowl rematch unless the NFL changes its conference alignment or playoff structure. The Jets have never been back to the Super Bowl since the merger. Everyone knows that. They have that long drought. Only reaching, as far as they reached the AFC title game 4 times. The 82 season, the 98 season, the 09, and the 2010 seasons. 82, they lost in the swamp to Miami, although a lot of people said that Miami purposely didn't put tarp over the field when it was raining so that the Jets' high-power offense would be grounded in a sense. The 98 one was against the Broncos, which the Jets shocked themselves by doing pretty well under Bill Parcells. The 2009 and 2010 seasons, aka 2010 2011, it was shocking, especially 2011 when the Pats had the Jets comfortably at home and lost it. So basically, yeah, the Jets had a chance. Mark Sanchez then became victim of the sumo butt. That's what I call the butt fumble. On the other hand, the Colts won Super Bowl 5 a couple years later. Redemption and all that. And then after relocating to Indy, they won Super Bowl 41. So it's 41, 2000, 41 in 2007, and then Super Bowl 44 in 2010, they lost to the Saints, the Brazilian Saints. Teams representing Baltimore and New York actually contested one Super Bowl since the merger, and it was weird because it was the Jets' crosstown rival, the Giants, facing Baltimore's replacement team, the Ravens, in Super Bowl 35, with Baltimore crushing the Giants 34-7. Yeah, that was weird. Well, Baltimore, of course, moved the team. The team moved from Baltimore to Indianapolis in 1984 thanks to, what's that snake in the grass? His name? I would say Rosenblum, but that's not it. Irsay, that's it. Bob Irsay basically said that I will not move the team from Baltimore. And then a couple days later, he moved the team from Baltimore to Indianapolis under the cover of night and took 17 different routes so that the police would not stop him. And strange as it sounds, this is one of the biggest factoids you want to know. This was the first of 3 occasions that a New York team beat a Baltimore team in postseason play in sports, which is weird because the Knicks beat the Bullets in the NBA playoffs when the Bullets were in Baltimore and not in Washington. Well, they're called the Wizards now. And the Mets took down the Orioles in the World Series, as we all know that. So that's weird how New York and Baltimore met each other in 3 of the 4 sports leagues in the playoffs. Of course, the NHL would not happen because Baltimore has never had an NHL team in their history. And this would be the last time the Jets would smell postseason success until they beat the Bengals in the 82-83 playoffs. Crazy. Yeah, that stat is crazy how you would have New York and Baltimore face each other 3 times during playoffs in the 4 major sports leagues. Amazing, don't you think? And that's all there is to it. I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.